You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Joining us on the Newsmaker line is the founder, the creator of ECW, and a man who has a new book out called Todd is God. He is Todd Gordon. Mr. Gordon, are you with me?
I am.
I mean Todd. I know you don't like me calling you Mr. Gordon, so I'll say Todd. Are you with me?
I am.
And I should have also introduced you as my favorite Phillies fan. So we got that in common too. So obviously I mentioned it in the introduction. The book is now out. It is called Todd is God. Obviously a bombastic title. One you took from the Sign Guy Dudley sign that kind of became a chant in the ECW arena. But I guess first questions first. How has the reception been thus far to the new book?
Great.
All right, I'm glad to hear that. And
I'm sorry, yo. I'm messing with you. Do my David Flair impersonation. I'm trying to give you all one-word answers. Yeah, there we go. I'm just fucking with you. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Oh, God. First of all, it wasn't Sign Guy Dudley. It was a guy who was the actual, we called him Sign Guy. He sat in the front row
just Sign Guy, okay.
from every show. And Sign Guy Dudley was a character who was created to combat Sign Guy. That's how that all started. The Sign Guy Dudley was anti-Sign Guy. It was like this crazy thing going on. But that's the way we were with our audience. We loved our audience. Like we loved that they came up with stuff that we could play off of like that. But that's where Sign Guy came from.
The name is definitely eye-catching. Todd is God. It sounds like an egotistical statement, but obviously that's not at all the case when you read the book. It's definitely not. It's a humble approach to your achievements in pro wrestling, but like I said, how have people been receiving to it, and what is the feedback thus far?
I've been so thrilled with the reaction to it. Like, not only with the people who buy it, but even the wrestlers who are buying it, and the people who are used to working at ECW are buying it. It's crazy. It's been all positive, terrific reviews that make me humbled beyond means. And just tell you, I've been absolutely ecstatic with it. I've been doing signings. I did a signing this past Saturday in Philly. A couple of weeks ago, we're in South Carolina and New York. We've been, moving around doing some book signings. It's doing very, very well. Thank you for asking.
You're very welcome. And I guess the simple question is, with all the ECW nostalgia that seems to flutter about here and there, obviously with WWE's attempt to recreate it, TNA tried to somewhat recreate it. Everybody seems to try to recapture the magic in a bottle. What made this the right time to finally put your story out there and put the story of the original ECW out there the way that it is?
Well, it really, first of all, it is lightning in a bottle, and it can't be recreated, but we would have recreated it ourselves. It was the right time, right place, right everything. We're at a TV show that no one monitored, allowing us to stay and do pretty much damn near anything. We had a building owner at our arena who didn't care what we did to the building as long as we paid for repairs. It was like just a perfect storm, so to speak. As far as, I'm sorry, what did you ask me?
What made this the right time to put the story out there?
Right,
put your story out there.
Sorry about that. It was one of those deals where 30 years have gone by. I just sat back, let things play out the way they did. And Sean, my co-writer, was like, please, you got to do this book. And I said, I'm not doing the book. I didn't want to do a book. You got to tell the true story. If nothing else, get the whole story out there. Let people know the real story there. That's a big deal. It was a big monumental thing in wrestling. And he sat back for 25, 28 years and said nothing. Because I have nothing to gain from it. What do I still? Why? Anyway, long story short, Paul Heyman came out with a DVD, and in the DVD was for WWE. It was like
Rise and Fall. Yeah, Rise and Fall.
No, it was the Paul Heyman. It was the Paul Heyman DVD himself.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
In fact, he asked me to come down and speak on it, which I did. Gave him a few minutes of stuff, and later on when it came out, I'm watching it. They were, telling people, the whole story was, that's what happened, and the way it was told. And I said, wait, what? And it dawned on me that the reason he's saying that is because he never smartened up the guys in the locker room. I mean, most of the locker room, but the guys from New York, the Taz's, the Bubba's, the Dreamers, Either people who Francine didn't even know until I told her. There was something he and I had done together because he was losing the locker room. We put together his elaborate plan, both spelled out in the book, obviously, to, get the locker room back together. He had lost the locker room pretty much. It turned into cliques, which had never been before. And in order to do that, I tried to help him do that by doing what we did and not speaking about it. And he didn't speak about it. You notice after I left, we never once ever publicly said a bad word about each other. And I'm not trying to say a bad word here. I just don't like the fact that he still perpetrated it 30 years later. I thought everything that comes out in the videos, everything that comes out in the damn books is the unauthorized story of ECW, the unauthorized story of the rise and fall of ECW. Well, you know what? How about forget the authorized story? Let's hear the story of the guy who was there for every moment of it, who created it before there was even a Paul Heyman in it, and just trying to get the real story out there. And then as I did it, and we started telling more and more stories, it became more and more entertaining. I thought, damn, this is a pretty good book. It's entertaining as hell. The road stories are great. The behind-the-scenes stuff is great. I mean, as a fan, and I always try to put on shows that I would want to see as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
But as a fan, I thought, I'd like to have read that book. That's pretty cool. If I was, I would see it from both sides. That's where I really am. I'm a guy who's a fan just like everybody else.
Right, and I was fortunate enough to be a guy in the Northeast. So you guys, not instantly, it wasn't like the first market, but pretty early on, you guys started running somewhere on our cable in northern New Jersey. And I was a part of watching ECW. I always compare ECW to Woodstock, where there's a lot of people that say they watched it that didn't really watch it, just like they said that they were at Woodstock when they really weren't in Woodstock. But yeah, definitely I was a part of that from very early on in the process with ECW. So definitely reading your book brings back a lot of memories of sitting there watching VHS recordings of whenever I was able to set the timer to record it and watch it, when it was convenient. You guys, you captured a lot of that magic in the book as well, reliving those classic ECW moments.
Hey, James, can you imagine, James, if the internet was rolling back then? And we could have just sold our house shows for $1 or $5 or whatever you do it, across the country each month. We would have had money coming out the wazoo. We're just a few short years too soon for to have internet stuff like that.
Absolutely. Well, look at it this way. I'm reading the book as well. Terry Funk wrote one of the forwards to the book, and that put a lump in my chest when I read it because obviously we just recently lost Terry. I guess my thought is, how did you end up getting Terry to write the forward, and how important is his part in your story and your success as a promoter?
I'll start with this. There was nobody, not a single individual, who was more important to any success I had in the business. He was the most gracious, humble, intelligent, creative, talented man I ever met in this industry. He single-handedly elevated Shane Douglas. He single-handedly elevated Sabu, where each of them could work main events after their programs with him. He single-handedly elevated the Public Enemy by incorporating them into his stuff, first with him and then against him. He made everybody he was with into a star, and did it without even thinking about how any reflection on him, because he knew he already had his day. And yet we were giving it to him again because he was that damn good. But to have him do the forward, wow. I had a picture up on my Facebook of the two of us together, and I just wrote underneath it, "Forever grateful." That's what I feel like. I feel like I owe him so much. I'll always have love for Terry Funk and always be grateful for him. And to him do the forward, which is not something he would normally do, that was pretty touching too. I was humbled by that as well. I really was.
Absolutely. One of the, I think you'll be hard pressed to find somebody who has a bad word to say about Terry. I mean, just an amazing guy. When I'd call him up for an interview, he'd answer the phone, "Arizona, James," and he never turned me down. Never turned me down either. So he was always such a nice guy. I'm eternally grateful for him as well.
Did David Flair have nice things to say about him?
David Flair didn't have much to say about anything. I put that up on YouTube a few years ago after it lived on my website exclusively for years. And people say, "Wow, you did everything you could, but he just didn't want to be there." So there's nothing you can do when somebody just doesn't want to be part of it.
Those are the classics.
Yep, exactly. Throw things out there and see what sticks, and this time nothing stuck. But so like I said, watching. Obviously, I was a tape collector. I was somebody who had all of the ECW releases and all that good stuff. You guys did a good job of having established names for 80s wrestling fans that wanted to see the Don Moroccos and the Jimmy Snukas and, as you mentioned, Terry Funks. But you also introduced, seemingly seamlessly, guys like the Sandman, guys like Taz, guys like Tommy Dreamer, who became the face of the company. Was it a tightrope to work to not just go to the Dennis Carluzzo, approach of let's have the big names be the draw, and instead going to mixing them and mixing the talent in the way you guys did?
Actually, James, that was strategy from actually day one of Eastern in the bar show era. I mean, you put on just big names, and now they've come out and they've seen them, and then what happens? They keep bringing out the same big names, and they're coming out and saying, "Yeah, I already saw him." Like, oh, is there a storyline here? Or they just, I mean, especially when you have TV. What are you going to do with these things? It's not going to happen. But first show I ever did was a bar show in front of like 80 people, Mike Schmidt's Sports Bar, where I brought in Ivan Koloff, and that's it. It was a reasonable price. It was a drive-in, and first night he was in my first show, and he said, "Who am I putting over?" And I said, "I'm sorry?" He said, "Who am I putting over?" I said, I have you winning here. You're Ivan Koloff. You beat Bruno Sammartino in the Spectrum for the world title. Are you kidding me? You beat anybody you won. He goes, "No, that doesn't do you any good. I beat somebody and I leave. What good does that do you? Let me get beaten by them. That elevates them. Then that shows they mean something." And I went, wow. It was like a learning curve from day one. And I was, thank God, surrounded by people like an Ivan Koloff or Snuka and Terry, guys who would teach. I learned so much from them as I was going along the way until I felt confident doing things as I was doing them. They were godsends, those guys, absolute godsends. But yeah, that was the whole idea of mixing our guys with A-Star, which then became 2 and then became 3. But then as we got bigger, went on TV, we really had to weed out which guys we thought could continue to make the company grow from the original guys, and which guys we could elevate as long as we bring the other guys to elevate with them, keep the people coming. That was all strategy from day one. None of that was just tightrope walking at all.
Absolutely, and I'm a big fan of Eddie Gilbert. I got to tell you, Eddie Gilbert is like, in my opinion, if he was a foot taller, he probably would have been a massive star in the wrestling business. Unfortunately, he was just that little bit short, and maybe even got in his own way in other ways as well. But he was a big part of those.
When he was with Bill Watts, which is a major national company, he was like the star of that company as much as DiBiase or Dr. Death or anybody was. His size meant nothing. Now, what happened was Vince went to Land of the Giants, as did WCW. So all of a sudden, they started watching ECW, and they went, Eddie Guerrero, he can really wrestle. Or, hey, look at that Malenko. I wasn't know 1,000. That's entertaining as hell. Maybe you don't have to be 6'7" and 350 pounds to be an entertaining and intelligent and good qualified wrestler. And sure enough, they grabbed all of our talent, that era. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, Benoit's got a belt, Guerrero's got a belt. All the smaller guys are getting belts from the happened to Land of the Giants. I guess we did it better. I showed them the way.
I would agree. I recently had on C.W. Anderson, and he basically said that ECW was the precursor to AEW, to what we see on TV now on TBS and TNT. And, Tony Khan was in the crowd. He's very proud about talking about that, as was a lot of people that are now in the business in the crowd at those shows. But do you think that that's a fair statement, that without what you guys were doing, the wrestling that we currently have certainly wouldn't exist in the way that it does?
I don't really see that as the next generation of ECW at all, to be honest with you. I think it's great to have an alternative product. I think it's phenomenal for guys making livings there. When there are only so many limited jobs, they can make good livings. Now there's 2 companies where people can make good livings. I'm all for that. I think that's great. But do I think it was like ECW? No, because we were just like, if we were like the two guys going out, like the old R gang. Let's go out back and put on a show. And they put a little stage up and they do it. That's us. We were like, hey, this is really funny. Let's get this group called the Dudleys. We'll keep adding to them. No, let's do, or BWO. And whatever it was. So we come up with comedy in our minds, and then we come up with matches and angles. It was all made sense, though. I mean, there was all storyline that made sense. Taz and Sabu not touching for almost a full year. A full year that hadn't even touched. And it was the hottest feud going, and they hadn't been in the ring together yet.
Wow.
Things like that. I don't think AEW is doing stuff like that. They have their own niche, and that's great. But I can't watch in Jewish shows when I see a guy do a triple moonsault off a ladder to the floor. To get up a couple of seconds later and do another spot. I go, wait, what? What? I mean, that's not the business to me. But I have my niche that I like, the kind of shows that I like, and he puts on the shows he likes. It's his money. God bless him. Everybody's working. That's all I care about. But I don't see that as something that came out of ECW's ashes at all.
Really? Okay. See, a lot of people have made that assumption. But I'm taking it from the guy who did it. So you're right. To prove that I was watching it back then, a commercial aired a commercial that used to air during your broadcasts that I never really connected to you until the book, and I probably should have, was the jewelry commercial that featured Sherry Martel and Nancy. And man, you guys, I mean, I never really connected those dots. That I thought they just were a sponsor, but that was your company, and that's, where it all kind of came out of. And I've heard you tell the stories about Francine coming to the jewelry store, not realizing that was kind of the office. But I guess the question is, how did you leave the world of jewelry to enter pro wrestling? What made this wrestling thing be the thing?
I wish I could tell you that was the case, James. I wish I could tell you that. But I never left that business. I kept that business, ran that business, maintained it the entire time I was in ECW. It was a family business. I was supporting 3 kids out of there. I was supporting 4 kids out of there. I was supporting my parents out of there. I was supporting a lot of people there. And it's very important that business stay stable. It's now in its 163rd year, by the way, which is almost unfathomable. But yes, it's been a generational business. I was not going to let that business go under, but I had to be there every day, and I was. No matter how hard a weekend it was, and there were some hard-ass weekends, I was there every day. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, when we opened, I was there all the way through the week. And the boys would pick me up on Friday or Thursday and take me to the airport. We got together, knew where we were going, and that's pretty much how it went. It was a 24/7 deal. It was no picnic, I'll tell you that.
Very cool. Like I mentioned a few moments ago, ECW appealed to...
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Before you go on, the commercials. Well, we didn't have any advertisers. When we first started the TV show, we never had any kind of real advertisers. Other than guys that go, like, call this 800 number and get a catalog. They send you $3 if they do it. So we did... All of our commercials were for our own videotapes, our own merchandise, because you're required by the FCC to have 12 minutes of commercial in a 60-minute show. We had to do something, so we did our own commercials. Here's our next show's commercial. Here's VHS commercial. Here's Carver Reed's commercial. And it's just a whim one night. I get Sherry and Nancy together in the locker room. I go, I want to do this thing. I give them the gig. They got it. Poor Sherry. It was after the show, so I hope no harm held for anything that happens post-show. You're good when you do your job. That's all I care about. After that, you're on your own. Boy, she couldn't get Carver W. Reed out of her mouth for the life of her. It's just coming out of Carver. Nancy and I go, come on, Sherry. Carver. W. Sorry, try to put them all together. I mean, this is really painful. That 30-second commercial took about an hour to do.
I mean, I loved Sherry Martel, though. She was one of a kind. Absolutely one of a kind human being, too. And, of course, Nancy. I've heard you say in other interviews that Nancy was probably the most beautiful of all of the women of ECW that you were around. Is that still what you would say?
She's the most beautiful person, I said. I never even thought about her looks that way, because she was like, she rode with us. She was part of our group. It was me, Sandman, Fonzie, Scorpio, and Nancy. And she was like the sister, and occasionally when she had to be the mother, which, all right, boys, come on, settle it down now. And she could take control. She was just great. We loved Nancy. Her loss is something that affects me to this day. So I can't even say that guy's name without him cringing.
Absolutely. Yep, I know. I've had a friend of mine who passed away a couple years ago, Freddie Fargo, felt the same way. So I don't know how much he meant, if that name even crossed your path, but he, every time, every day, he would post stuff about Nancy. So definitely a nice.
Well, I know his strut became epic in the arena when Blue Meanie and Stevie Richards did it.
All right. Well, let's hear. You mentioned about
the Fargo strut. Nothing.
No, not the Freddie Fargo. Freddie Fargo, not Jackie.
Oh, got it. Sorry.
Yeah. Jackie Fargo was the big one in Tennessee. Freddie Fargo kind of was an indie guy. Worked Ozark Mountain and a bunch of other places. Real sweet guy. Worked Global for whatever that was worth. I love Global.
I am talking to Joe Walsh, right?
This is James Walsh, not the one from America.
I thought you were bringing Rocky Mountain High. I'm all confused here now.
Oh, Rocky Mountain High. I've been asked that before if I'm related to him. No relation. Nor the America's Most Wanted guy either. No relation there either. Or Bill Walsh from the 49ers, whichever you want to pick. No relation to any of them, unfortunately.
I'd go for Rocky Mountain High if I were you.
You got it. All right, well, let's see here. ECW appealed to a different kind of wrestling fan. It was kind of cool because I would wear an ECW shirt to school and then wear a Hulkamania shirt. And I know I was a rarity because usually one did not lend itself to the other. What was it about what you guys did that kind of appealed to a more insider fan, to where so many of the fans that were at the arena are now in the business?
Well, for one thing, they beat the hell out of each other. I mean, were outcomes predetermined? Yeah. They go out there and not lay it in. No, everything was laid in. Whether it was a trash can lid or a chair. I mean, you can't not lay it in when you're going through the audience. They went through every audience, front of the building to the back of the building. So there was never a bad seat in the building. That was one of my thoughts in doing that kind of through the building stuff. Never a bad seat. Everybody got a good seat. So they would go through, and you're sitting that close to the crowd. You're throwing haymakers, and you're not hitting the guy. The people are going to start crapping all over it. So these guys went out there, and they beat the daylights out of each other. I mean, our locker room was like a mash unit after every show, for God's sakes. It was real. So that's what the people were seeing. That's what they wanted. In addition to that, they were grunge rock that the music Paul was using was appealing to the younger people. He was using music I hadn't even heard yet. And I loved it when he turned me on to it. It was always him on the music. He had such a mind for what was going to be hot coming up next. Always just finger on the pulse for that kind of stuff. And thank God, because the music was great. That's helped make us a lot. Nobody's doing music videos before us.
Yep, exactly. And one thing you guys did as well as a adolescent was you featured the females. You had Beulah, you had Francine. Later on, you had others as well. But those are the two that immediately jump to my mind when I think about ECW.
Like I told you, I try to put on the shows that I would want to see. And yeah, I want some TNA in there with my comedy, with my hardcore, and with my chain wrestling guy. I want a little bit of everything, but I want good everything, not some good, some crap. I try to make even the opening matches where there's Hack Myers against Axel Rotten. I mean, that was a good match. And there was the opening match sometimes, and the crowd yelling "Shaw, shit, Shaw." I mean, that was the audience. It was like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It was an experience to be there, and we loved that. And they made it that way for us, and we try to give it back to them in spades. But absolutely, every match was thought of like there's no main event guy per se. We never were going to have a Hulk Hogan or an Ultimate Warrior. We said that together from day one, that no one person's ever going to be bigger in this company. And there were times we just, for the hell of it, would run a show and say, ECW, this coming third, whatever, and not name a match. And it was sold out. Because people knew they liked the product. Nobody's going to come up to us at a pay-per-view and say, I want another 5,000 or I'm not going out there. That was never going to happen. And they didn't want to be like that. This group of people really, for the first 4 or 5 years especially, they were like a family. The locker room was amazing.
Absolutely. So it's 2023 now, and my kid is 14.
Wait, I got to change my calendar. Hold on. I told you it was 2023. Damn it.
So my kid has now discovered pro wrestling. He's 14, and he's loving watching a lot of my old stuff and seeing the stuff that I watched. And then I'll play him in a video game. And in the video game, he'll do a mixed tag match, and I'll hit the girl partner because she's coming into the ring to stop the pin. And they ring the bell. They disqualify you because they can't allow that. Now, ECW was the first company that I remember that had real, like, violence towards women. We mentioned Francine, the super bomb through the table by the Pit Bulls, the total elimination by the Eliminators. You had a lot of stuff that she would do that a lot of others wouldn't. Did you guys get any blowback from maybe religious groups or maybe even sponsors and things like that when you started to feature more violence towards the girls like that?
Well, again, we didn't really have sponsors, so that wasn't a major issue. And religious groups probably just didn't watch the show, I would think. But in terms, it was, mostly, you're a female manager. Like today, you're a female manager, you interfere, you smack the guys around, they can't touch you. Well, that's garbage. Then don't let them touch the guys. Nobody just came over and just grabbed the one for the reason and started beating her up. Usually in retaliation for something she had done heinous to the guy during the match.
Right,
So,
right.
just did that arbitrarily pick Francine out of the audience to power slam her. However, but then again, we also had Luna Vachon, who worked in a steel cage against Stevie Richards.
Stevie Richards, right, yeah.
Luna Vachon she could go with anybody. I'll tell you how I met Luna Vachon, okay?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
For those people who don't know Luna Vachon, she was originally out of Florida with Kevin Sullivan's group. Phenomenal worker, long lineage in the business of all the Vachons, Butcher Vachon, all the Vachon brothers. The first time I meet her, we're in Florida. She's going to come in for a spot show to see if when we start using her. Nancy Sullivan, the woman, calls me over as she's sitting at the table doing her makeup next to Luna. She says, "Hey, boss." Pardon me. "Hey, boss, I want you to meet Luna." I extend my hand. I said, "Hi, nice to meet you." Luna takes her hand, reaches down, grabs my balls, and squeezes them. Says, "Nice to meet you, boss." I was literally dumbfounded. It's not easy to dumbfound me. I had... You?
That was me.
Hold on. You fucked up.
Don't worry about it. That was just my home phone. I still have one of those.
He fucked up. He fucked up. He fucked up.
All right. Sorry. Where were you? So you said you were dumbfounded by being greeted
I could
by
not believe I was getting ready to meet an employee of mine for the night, and that was the way she greeted me without knowing me. I guess there was someone enough that I was cool, but whatever. So I was like, "Nice to meet you too." Like, ow. And walked away like absolutely unreal. But Luna was cool as hell.
All right. Well, I love Luna Vachon. Unfortunately, she's on this list of people we've talked about. She's the only one that I didn't get a chance to interview. I was working on something for her when she passed, but yeah, unfortunately,
you were probably doing a Shane Douglas interview and it ran long.
That's probably true. Well, speaking of Shane Douglas, he was actually the next name on my list. If I was to name my favorite ECW performer, I have to say it would probably have been Shane Douglas. The character that he created in ECW of the franchise was awesome. He was the guy who couldn't go in the ring. The mic skills were unbelievable, especially when he was the heel. He had the pretty girl on his arm. There was nothing about that character that wasn't everything.
Why do you see that as a character? That's Shane Douglas.
He was amazing. That was great. What was your thoughts on Shane Douglas? Do you think that he was kind of the franchise player of ECW, that he kind of took the moniker of?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, my God, he carried that belt and carried that company for years. He was phenomenal. Eddie Gilbert brought him in the first time, and I said, "You want to bring in Shane Douglas? Like the dynamic dudes, Shane Douglas?" They will kill him here. They hate the freaking long hair, blonde hair, baby face. He goes, no. He's going to be a heel. I go, Shane Douglas, a heel? Come on, Eddie, what are you talking about? Well, first night in, he comes to the ring. I'd never met him before. We're in the ring together. I hand the microphone. I was about 2 minutes in. I said, yikes, this guy's a home run. Holy smokes. And sure enough, he just grew and grew and grew the role and grew in carrying that company. He was phenomenal. Still is. I love Shane.
Absolutely. And
I love all those guys.
Say again?
I really love like all those guys. Like, I'm still best friends to this day with Sandman, Scorpio, Fonzie. We talk for 30 years now, all the fucking time. All last night, had Sandman we did a convention together Saturday. The day before that, Fonzie. It never ends. Such a intense, family feeling that we have with each other and caring for each other. It's awesome.
Absolutely. I was going to ask this later. Go ahead.
And Raven feels the same way about himself.
I'm sure he does. I was going to ask this a little bit later, but I'll ask now. When Vikes ran the Bam Bam Bigelow tribute, the story of Bam Bam's passing, and I know that by this point, when Bam Bam came in, at least the last time, you were more or less done with ECW. But looking at some of the footage they showed of ECW, you could almost get a checklist and check off the people that are inactive or no longer on the planet. It's somewhat fortunate to say that, but it's true. We hear a lot of stories about ECW and the wild backstage environment, and nobody really denies it. But do you think that the style of wrestling or the style of living had anything to do with a lot of these guys, unfortunately, not living as long as they probably should have otherwise?
It's a heavy question. I'll answer it the best I can. Number one, it was 30 years ago, so it was a different era. Mm-hmm. Number two, these were guys who were trying to get to a point where wrestling could be a living for them, either again or for the first time. They were putting their bodies through abuse that, my God, no one should put their bodies through. Like Sabu breaking his neck. I mean, whatever, all of them. It was ungodly what they did. So they looked for crutches to help themselves. And a lot of them had addictive personalities to begin with. And a lot of them, drugs was vicious thing in the world. That's the number one killer in the world, for God's sakes. And again, like I said, we know a lot more now than we did 30 years ago. I mean, I used to make jokes back then. If you can pass a drug test, you can't get an ECW. I really love that. You know what? It's not funny anymore. I don't find the humor in it now that I found it 30 years ago. And a lot of that's education, too. I mean, look at CTE injuries. You know, I see these people die from CTE injuries. That wasn't even a thing then. No one thought anything about getting cracked across the head with a chair. No one thought anything about getting thrown through tables to the cement floor. I can prove it by letting you see my back and my stem cell shots I have to get every 4 weeks. But yeah, the culture was very drug oriented, but people did not go to the ring. You know, other than Sandman with a beer, people didn't go to the ring fucked up. Never. If they came in that building and they were whacked, they didn't work. No questions asked. They were out for the night. My rule was, I don't care what you do, you're all grown men on your own time. For the time that I pay you, I do care what you do. Don't be too high or too whack or too whatever. Do stuff, anything to get in that ring to do the job the right way. That's the fairest answer I can give you.
I love it. And I'm sorry for the heavy question, but we'll get back to fun stuff in just a sec, I promise.
I got to go now, but thanks for calling.
Let's talk about the elephant or the walrus in the room, if you will, and that, of course, is...
Wait a minute, that's not nice. That's not nice. Don't call her that.
I'm just kidding. Of course, I'm talking about Paul Heyman and the sale...
That elephant.
That elephant.
He got heavy. That's not nice.
All right. Well, as a fan who, like I said, the guy who says he was at Woodstock that actually was there, or the guy who watched ECW that actually was watching ECW, you could tell, at least I could, when the pay-per-view era started, after Barely Legal, maybe even into more so into 98, 99, that there was a little bit less of the renegade piss and vinegar spirit that you guys had before you would do things like the WWE invasion and so on and so forth. Do you feel that that's a fair assessment, that ECW lost
Oh my
a little bit
God.
of that around it? Yeah.
That, by the way, you're the first person to ever ask me that, and that's a great question, and 100% yes. Because we had different aspirations. My aspirations were just to make ECW a thing that, like, hey, we can make money on and do, and people loved it, we loved it, and it was our thing. His aspiration was to be Vince McMahon. Those are two completely different aspirations. One of our first ever, very early first almost, big fights was when he had taken over the company. He said, I'm making a deal for us to invade Monday Night Raw. I said, that's the worst idea I've ever fucking heard in my life. Why? Why? Because we just spent 3 years of time, energy, and television telling people we hate the main event guys. We hate the WWE, the WCW. We hate those guys because they're all corporate. We're anti-corporate. We're anti-establishment. They're the establishment. Our fans are smart enough to know if we show up on their show, then you're working in concert with them. You've killed everything we've put up for 3 years. And the answer was, we got our own point of view. Like, no one's right or wrong. He said, hey, we're going to get 1 million more eyes on our product. And we got our first pay-per-view coming up. And I just said, I disagree. I think we do the same thing without that. And I think we need to build to that point, and we're getting on pay-per-view too soon. But at that point, I'd given up control, so I had to go with the flow.
Wow.
I'm glad we lightened it up. Thanks.
Well, here you go. Well, let's talk a little bit.
Do they pay you to come to funerals, or they bring you in like shivers, or what?
Well, let's talk about happy. Well, let's talk a little bit about fun stuff with yourself back on, I guess you would call it TV. When you were doing stuff with 3PW, you were involved in some stuff. It usually involved a girl, which, by the way, congratulations on that. That's a great spot to be in. But you were between Missy Hyatt and Jasmine St. Clair. At one point, you even had who became Velvet Sky on your arm. I mean, you've had a lot of pretty girls on your arm. 3PW was an interesting company. What did you think of 3PW, the promotion, and how involved really were you back there?
Well, they called me up there. I mean, I guess they'd already been in existence for I'm not sure how long, but Meanie called me up and he says, listen, we got the shows we're doing here every month, whatever. I said, that's good for you. He said, yeah, but we got a main event we want to do with a New Jack, Sabu, and Sandman. I said, that's the hell of a main event. He said, yeah, we're thinking about a body bag match. I said, go get him, Brian. He said, but we're a little concerned about keeping those three under control. Like Jasmine and I are the kind of people who would be able to control those three. I go, yeah. He was wondering who would come down and you'd pay X amount for one night, so then referee the match, set up the match, and just like keep things under control in the dressing room with those three. Because they respect you. They won't do anything crazy if you're there. I said, okay, I'll do that. Plus, I get to see my friends, so yeah, of course I'll do that. So I went there, did the show, and then she asked me if I would consider being the booker for her shows. I said, okay. And we made a deal for X amount of dollars, and every month I'd book her shows for her. They get whatever talent they wanted, and I would try to put together a show that would make sense. Bring in one or two of my guys, like Gary Wolf, the Pitbull, Scorpio, whoever it may be. And that's what we did. As far as the girl thing is concerned, I know it sounds like, finally, you do anything you want after all the girls. Listen, if that was the case, you can do that in the backstage. That's not it at all. They were just not ready to go out there and do their own angles. It's like she wanted to do a woman's division without wrestling. It's like a woman's, like, I don't know, cat fight, wet t-shirt. Like, the vision made no sense. There's nothing I could write for them that would make sense. by themselves. They need someone to drag it along, carry it along. I mean, I can remember, my God, the reason I'm out there with them is I'm telling them what to do while I'm out there with them, even though I've gone over it 10 times. Gorgeous George, I love her. I love Gorgeous George. She and Jasmine are doing this angle where I'm Jasmine's sugar daddy.
Yep.
We go to the ring. It's a very simple angle. I say to George, here's what you're going to do. You're going to ask Jasmine, can I touch it? Everybody's going, ooh, and then you say, can I, Jasmine? She'll say, oh, okay, you can touch it. Then I want you to reach in my pocket, stop, you wait for the ooh, and you go, this is the biggest. You pull my wallet out. I say, wallet I've ever seen in my entire life. I get it, Jet. It was comedy. Oh, my God. We're in the ring. I'm going, go for the wallet. I'm like, whispering in her ear, go for the wallet. You wait, it's a lolly. Oh, my, it was terrible. That's why I was out there with the girls back with Jasmine.
Absolutely. And, I wouldn't fault you if it was any other reason, but yeah, definitely it makes a lot of sense.
But if it wasn't the reason, that would have been cool too. I was just trying to get them all involved in some kind of a storyline. Whether Velvet Sky was the sex slave that I gave Jasmine, whatever it was it didn't even make it seem like a story. Instead of girls just going out there and, hey, throw water on my shirt. It was brutal. I had to come up with something to make that thing survive. And it was her company, so of course I had to make her look good too.
Absolutely. And Jasmine, obviously she was for the sex appeal of being Jasmine St. Clair and all that, but women's wrestling now is as featured almost as such as men's wrestling, and it is such a big part of the show. What is your take on that? And I mean, the girls today obviously maybe a little bit more skilled than in years gone by, but what do you think of women's wrestling and modern era wrestling?
My friend, it's freaking believable. Talented these women are in wrestling today. It's amazing. I mean, their stuff is so good and so tight. 75%. There's always that 25% of the underneath part that you got to drag along with it. But they're top people in all the companies right now. They're amazing. Look at Charlotte Flair and Asuka, Bianca. I mean, these girls are talented as hell. And Becky, I mean, they've got great talent. They've got great ability to tell a story. They're as talented as the men. They just have to get themselves to a position where, I don't know how that happens, where people want to see that as much as they want to see the men's matches. But yeah, they're phenomenal athletes. They're so much better than they were ever before.
Absolutely. I interviewed John Tatum a couple of months ago, and he said he doesn't understand why people want to see men's wrestling when the girls are so much better than the guys in the ring. Then I at first I thought that was a ridiculous statement, and then I started watching the shows. I'm like, yeah, you might be right.
They are really good. I mean, absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up here pretty soon. The book, once again, Todd is God, and that book is out there now. And one of the things that you talk about most that really has an arc in the book is the story of Paul's dealings with the WWE. So for those who really want to know more about that, buy the book. It's definitely worth it for that purpose alone. But I guess my final question is, what legacy are you looking to leave for yourself in the world of professional wrestling? How do you want people like myself and people that are wrestling fans in years to come to think of Todd Gordon?
Well, wow, you got some good questions here, my brother. I think that I felt as though one of the reasons I started was like, people had forgotten I was ever in wrestling. Like, I had zero legacy. And I found that odd, because there was a time when, I knew where year it was, and they were, doing their year-end, issues of the Torch and the Observer. They see the three most powerful, people in wrestling now are Vince and Bischoff and Todd Gordon, and there was a name that was, I don't think felt like it belonged there, but it was being mentioned there, stated there. And then all of a sudden now they're calling it Paul Heyman's ECW everywhere you look and turn, and he does not even refute that a little bit. I'm thinking, well, I hired you. I hired you because I hired Eddie for. I mean, wait, it was never yours until it was yours. Don't ever exactly. I never existed. I was like off the wall. So my legacy, what I wanted to be remembered. To be remembered as being somebody who was like, A, hopefully humble, B, fan friendly as hell. Because I was a fan, I just always thought about this pissed me off. It's just bait and switch. Like, I don't want that. I want to treat my fans that come to my shows with the same respect that I would like to be treated with when I watch a show. And if that's the legacy I left, that's all I really ever wanted to leave.
Absolutely. And with me, you left a legacy of being just a really nice guy, a man's man, and a total nice guy. Like I said, I'm going to let people in on this. We started talking about doing an interview when our respective baseball teams were in the National League Championship Series against each other. And
you're from Texas?
No, I'm from Arizona.
I'm kidding.
Well, we were going head to head, and I was thinking, I have the potential of making this guy mad because I'm from Arizona. And never an ill word did we speak to one another in that series. Maybe at the TV screen during some of the games, but never at each other. I appreciate that too, by the way. And yeah, that's all I can say is you're a man's man, and I appreciate you taking the time and doing this with me. And I do apologize. I asked some darker questions as well as the light, fluffy stuff.
That's okay. You made up for when your phone rang.
That was I effed up. That's true. Yep. Me and JT
Radio.
Me and JT.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it, man. Before I let you go, do you mind if I ask for one last favor from you?
My goodness, you're pushy. Go ahead.
Last favor would be just if I can get a station ID of some kind, just saying this is Todd Gordon, and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.
Epicenter?
Epicenter, yes, sir.
Okay. This is Todd Gordon, ECW.
Oh, do you want me to do the whole Wayne's World countdown thingy?
No, just tell me when.
All right, and go.
This is Todd Gordon, ECW founder, and you're listening to Wrestling's Epicenter with James Ross.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, Rush.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh, yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, Maniacs, so what you gonna do when the Blaze of Maniacs runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey guys, we had a lovely conversation.
First lady.
Absolutely. Oh, look at me. She's so kooky.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive
Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling.
Epicenter.
Oh my God! You win! Wow, being interactive.
Whoa! I was gonna shoot him. Yeah. I almost missed my fan. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Let's go. I see my language. You're gonna go to the shop. Plenty of no. We're gonna get many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's gonna be cool. Woo! What it's all about. The purest point of view. The living legend. Champion. Arrogant.
You're listening to me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
You're so glad to leave without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview. I'm not just the best. Interactive interview with a plastic
You
head.
earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional wrestling.
Made in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire. I'm not
We were sexy.
What a show.
One and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge with this whole. You're where it's at. You better recognize who's the best. Make sure to tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer. Knock down your door and turn it on for you. Or else I'm going to kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line.
Have a nice day.
It's showtime!
Don't forget to like and subscribe.